Okay, so this is 112, of course, English 112, and we are now in week 3. And if you take a look at the schedule, we have a heaping helping of readings essentially for you. That's all poetry stuff, and I have the list on the announcements page of all the poems you should be reading and discussing this week. And so, one thing as you think about poetry, and you'll be writing a paper about poetry here next week, the thing is, like, a lot of students will read from point A to point B and say they're done with it. Okay, so, obstacle passed. I put all the words in front of my eyes, and my eyes moved across the words, and now I'm done. Which is also a danger with short stories, but more so with poetry because there's going to be a lot of meanings, ideas, and themes that are built in throughout a lot of these poems, and you really need to sort of ruminate on them, think about them, reread them a couple of times, maybe do a little bit of poking around online to try to see if there's other things out there that can help you come to some sort of conclusion about these poems. So even the simplest ones have some sort of underlying ideal or meaning to them. So as you go through these poems, I know it seems like a lot of them, but keep in mind we're compressing basically 3-4 weeks of poems into essentially 1.5 weeks, and then getting ready for your paper next week. And so kind of work your way through those, and then your discussion board will be made available here later on Sunday. So make sure that you participate in that and start looking ahead to your paper. Start thinking about ways to approach the poetry and so on. If you take a look into weeks 3 and weeks 4 folders under course documents, you will find a whole bunch of different PowerPoints that are out there, and then also a presentation about paper number 1 that, if I remember correctly, also goes into how to cite poetry correctly, which is kind of a big deal. And so make sure you're checking that stuff out, kind of meter out your workload, read a couple poems at a time, think about them, come back to a couple more, and so on and so forth. And we'll talk about them over the span of the next few weeks.